Okay, good morning. So I'm going to continue to read Stolen Identity by John Kennedy Jr. And in my fashion. So two things. One, yesterday I did find a channel by the name of Dizzy, Dizzy, who she's also doing what I'm doing. She's reading his book. It appears she's reading without commentary. So if you want to hear someone read it live, and she also, in her thumbnail, the cover of the book with his photo is right there. So she's just highlighting that. So you can, if you want to hear it read by a human, go to the channel on YouTube called Dizzy. And she's doing the same thing I'm doing. But I'm going to still read in my different way, interjecting things here and there. The other thing interesting is yesterday, the minute I started uploading yesterday's video, which I'd never seen this before. You click upload, right? And right away, I saw something next to the thing that said 16 hours. Like it will tell you, if you upload videos on YouTube, it'll tell you how long it's going to take to upload it. As you watch it uploading, it'll say 3 hours remaining, 1 hour remaining, or whatever. But this time I saw a little teeny tiny 16-hour thing next to the thing, and I thought, oh, really? It already knows it's going to take 16 hours to upload this? Sure enough, I started uploading it in the morning, and it wasn't finished until 3 a.m. or something like that. So, not a joke. So, some algorithm, and then now I've got those 8 views on it with no, like. So, I mean, whatever, I'm beyond worried about what's happening with this, because there's so many of us that are talking, so, and the book is published and everything. So anyway, I just thought that was strange to see that that somehow on my channel it's already set up to slow down an upload from happening. All right, so now I'm going to continue from yesterday. And I'm about not even halfway through. Okay, this part is called Princess Diana. The Q plan suggests that Princess Diana did not die in that Paris tunnel in 1979. Instead, she is supposed to be secretly married to Donald Trump. By the way, just you guys, I'm just reading. I'm doing my best not to, I'm just reading, okay? The Q plan suggests that Princess Diana did not die in that Paris tunnel in 1997. Instead, she is supposed to be secretly married to Donald Trump, and Barron Trump is meant to be their son. As I reflect on this narrative, it occurs that Wayne deliberately orchestrated my meetings with Diana and her 2 sons for a specific purpose, so you would know the truth. Diana was a double. Despite being replaced very young, she was aware of the switch. In the late 90s, Wayne took me to Angola, where we swept for landmines. Princess Diana unexpectedly appeared. She spoke passionately about how terrible landmines were and how they blew off the limbs of innocent children. It seemed like she knew who I was, and I think she wanted to come clean. My impression of Princess Diana was that she was a genuinely kind and honest individual and hated living a life of deception. She was killed because she wanted to speak the truth about her identity. Okay, next, I guess I could call it a little chapter where it's underlined. Okay, Prince William and Prince Harry. It was around 2018 when I woke up one morning in an MK trance state. I was engrossed in my routine at home when a limousine pulled up outside. Opening the front door, I stared in disbelief as Princes William and Harry walked out, chuckling at the astonished look on my face. With a cheerful demeanor, they introduced themselves, explaining that they had just arrived from Las Vegas. Accompanying them was an agent like Wayne, but not nearly as cool, leading me to assume they were also under, quote unquote, I whipped up some hot dogs and we chatted in my living room. They were lots of fun and we had a great time. For some reason, the hot dogs tasted amazingly good to all of us, which might have been part of the programming because I make hot dogs all the time and they don't usually taste that good. At one point in the conversation, we spoke about the Queen, and Harry said, "They replaced that bitch 3 times. Then they asked about their mother. They wanted to know if their father, Prince Charles, killed her. I told them I didn't know, and they were quiet and thoughtful for a while. Then we resumed talking about other regular things. At some point, Wayne arrived and was listening to us. Then, as they were leaving, William attempted to put money in my coat pocket because he saw how broke I was. But Wayne took it out and handed it back to him, saying, "Yeah, it doesn't work like that." That's all I can tell you about William and Harry. The most important takeaway, in my opinion, is that their mother is dead. Okay, this one's called Aliens. I understand that aliens are an important part of the Q plan. Q followers believe a group of benevolent aliens is working in league with white hats to provide humanity with quantum healing med beds. I don't know anything about med beds, and I will only describe the one experience I had with Wayne while under MKUltra that involved aliens. We went into a building in New York and took an elevator deep underground. Wayne showed me to a room where there were 2 caskets. In each casket was a green alien about 4 feet tall. I laughed, thinking they were fake and the whole thing was some prank, but when I leaned over to touch one of them, Wayne grabbed my arm and said, "Don't touch." That's my only experience with anything related to aliens. If I get to shake one's hand one day, I'll know they are real, but I can't offer any information beyond what I've just described. A part of me wants to say something about this Q thing, but I'll keep quiet. The border wall debate. Oh, look at this one. The border wall debate and a warning from the past. Ooh. I haven't read this yet, you guys, so it's the first time. Many Americans supported the idea of Donald Trump's border wall between the U.S. and Mexico during his presidency. At the time of this writing, in 2023, the need for a wall is again being resurrected into the consciousness of concerned citizens as streams of immigrants pour into our country through the southern border. Interestingly, this mass immigration is happening before a presidential election in which Trump is forecast to run. Undoubtedly, immigration and the erection of a wall will be one of the platforms on which he bases his campaign. But that wall will be the death of us. Oh, thank you for saying this. Wayne showed me, and so I know. It was during the Reagan presidency in the late 80s, and I was in attendance at a meeting to the White House with Reagan and his cabinet. I wanted to sit at the table with everyone else, but Wayne told me to sit in the corner, watch, and listen. During the meeting, Reagan proposed a border wall, and everyone offered their opinions. Ultimately, his military advisors told him that if the United States was invaded by China, Russia, or North Korea, that invasion would most likely happen through our northern and coastal borders. Our only exit strategy would be through the south to Mexico. It's what I've been frickin' saying. If fleeing American citizens came up against a wall, it would be a mass slaughter, the greatest Holocaust the world has ever seen. Reagan understood and agreed and decided not to build a wall. Let me take a deep breath, everybody, because this is the first time I've heard somebody say exactly what I heard in the early 90s, that the border walls were being erected to keep us in. And I made a recent video called Sidearm about the border wall that I look at every day that I can't fucking stand because these barbarians are carving mountain ranges to put a fucking wall. Excuse me, here we go. And it makes no sense because people are coming and going anyway. They're not coming and going through where this wall is erected anyway. They got organized transportation systems anyway. And they can, right now, go down there, just drive right 5 minutes away, and you'll see the neighbor of my uncle, putting up I mean, forget it. It doesn't work. The wall doesn't work. It's Swiss cheese anyway. It's tunnel systems anyway. I could even say more. Anyway, here I am reading this, right? Unbelievable. Okay, I'm just like, finally someone says something, but isn't that interesting? Okay, so let me keep going. Ultimately, his military advisors told him that if the United States was invaded by, I read that, China and North Korea, that invasion would most likely happen through our northern and coastal borders. Our only exit strategy would be through the south to Mexico. And part of why I like living on the border is in case I have to flee the United States. It's only a couple of feet away. Jesus Christ. If fleeing blah, blah, blah. Okay. It is a matter of presidential record that this issue was visited in the past and dismissed for good reason. So now the reader must ask why this crisis, this need for a wall between us and Mexico, is being revisited and even forced. Who is Donald Trump and what is his real agenda? And I told you in the other video how he was going to, Trump was on his way here back in 2020, and Glenn Spencer was going to do a presentation for Trump to authorize the use of sidearm technology, which is drone technology, to monitor the border instead of the wall. And at the last minute, Trump canceled his visit and put Glenn Spencer's airplane on the front of a Time magazine to make him feel better. And Glenn was pissed off. He was pissed off that they weren't going to use this high technology, and they were going to instead build, which right now, if I went out to his property, you'd look right down from his house and probably see the motherfucking wall. Instead of, whatever. Okay, anyway. And he's got a tower on his property too. So, like, all kind of people have different reasons for not wanting, people to walk across and do stuff. But it's really been a catch-22. Okay, anyway. Okay, I believe Wayne showed me all these things. Donald Trump, the death of John and Princess Diana, so that I could give testimony about the Q plan, which is quite dangerous and akin to Stalin's first 5-year plan, quote, Operation Trust, unquote. Wow. In other instances, I believe Wayne wanted me to witness events for different reasons, to know the true nature of people in politics or entertainment, and to understand aspects of important future events, many of which are currently unfolding. In addition to witnessing the events I described, which one day allow me, which would one day allow me to debunk the dangerous Q plan, Wayne, while under MKUltra, took me to observe other events related to politics and politicians. I'll share these stories here and let the reader contemplate their significance. Okay, so something else came to mind I just want to mention. This thing where Wayne is showing him stuff and in a way helping him at the same time, helping put him through all this torture and stuff, reminds me of Credo Mutua's story where let's look up Baba Credo Mutua. He did that 6-hour interview with David Icke in the 90s where he described his abductions by aliens in Africa in the 50s, which was the first time I heard an African talk about this type of similar abduction, where he said he was missing for 3 or 4 days. He was taken up. He had the gray style of aliens actually extract semen from him and all this horror stuff. And when he got put back, he came to in this area, and then he immediately went to I don't know if it was just a nearby village or someone he knew, but he told his story and he was taken into a little ceremony by the elders that apparently knew what he was talking about, and there was a little ritual conducted there, and in that group he described, you can hear it in the interview with David Icke. He'll describe it somewhere in there, that 6 hour long interview, where they gave him a little square of something black cooked and had him consume it and swallow it, and it was human meat. And it was part of an initiation for him to, these are my words, to I can't even say it, but I understand why they did it, and it brought him into an how would you say, understanding of what he was dealing with, these creatures that eat flesh, that eat people, that yeah, anyway, it had something to do with that. So it was like, it was almost like, to really know something's going on, you have to be taken through it and shown it and maybe experience some of it to know 100% in your being. It's not just it's not just someone telling you something. It's like you're getting it. Okay, so that was in his thing in a kind manner. I don't think, his elders, I think it was a woman that he first went to that brought him into this thing. Like, they weren't hurting him by doing it. They were just making him say, well, I don't know exactly where they got the freaking, because, in parts of Africa, this whole sacrificial thing is done as well, and cannibalism, selling organs, is done as well, just amongst the African people themselves. So it's not just well, anyway, I shouldn't even put this in the video, but I just wanted to, if anything, I just referred y'all to go listen to Credo Mutua's story about that. Like, okay, sorry. Okay, the next chapter thing is called Nancy Pelosi and Justice Scalia. Wayne once took me to a big party where Nancy Pelosi was present. This was back when she was in her 30s. Wayne pulled her aside, and in front of me, he asked her, "Are you going to expose the truth about John here, the real John Kennedy, or are you going to take the money and fame and power?" Nancy coolly replied, "I'll take the money, fame, and power." Wayne nodded like he got the answer he expected. He just wanted me to see that, to know, and to understand. So it's interesting. So, yeah, anyway, okay, sorry. So, okay. Then there's Justice Scalia. Wayne took me to his cabin, a well-kept rustic cottage with a fireplace near Marfa, Texas. An eerie silence blanketed the room where Scalia was lying in bed. He wasn't breathing, and his skin had the rubbery white hue of a corpse. I said I thought he died from a heart attack, but Wayne said no. Stepping forward, he pointed to one of his socks rolled down just a little bit. He pointed again, indicating for me to look closely. I squinted, and there it was, a tiny red mark, a needle puncture. Justice Scalia was killed by a hot shot to the back of his leg, and Wayne wanted me to know. So there's yet another explanation for how Scalia died, which is the one that I last heard, was that the person he was raping smothered him. Okay, but now we just heard this one. Okay, the day I shot George Bush and Dick Cheney. And he has the word shot in one, in quote. Okay, the day I shot George Bush and Dick Cheney. Okay. Wayne must have been getting frustrated. He had big plans for me, whether it was to go into politics or run Atlantic City. I can't fathom anyone daring to defy Wayne. He generally instilled pure terror in anyone who tried. He did that when he handed me a gun loaded with blanks and told me, "When that door swings open, I want you to shoot. George Bush. So I walked around the side of the building and waited. When the door opened and Bush and Cheney walked out, I went over there and did it. I shot George Bush. Then, just for the hell of it, I shot Cheney too. Wayne wanted them to know he could take them out at any time. Other times Wayne used me like a decoy to find out who wanted to kill me. I remember being in a car driving. An undercover agent sat beside me in the front seat, and some guy I didn't know was in the back. Suddenly the guy in the back made a move to get his gun, but he never got the chance. The undercover agent whipped out his revolver and shot the guy. It blew out the back window, and human brains splattered all over the side of my face. People knew Wayne was watching out for me, and once, when I was in my 20s, I was in Boston, 1980. Okay, he was in Boston in 1980-ish, early 80s, and a mafia boss wanted me dead. His crew was around him, and he said, well, let's kill the kid. The whole crew looked at him for a minute. Then they turned their guns around and pointed them at their own boss. They said, we'll kill you before we kill this kid. They went from protecting him to turning their weapons on him. I don't know what happened to that guy, but he probably just disappeared. The whole operation was meant to sniff him out and expose whose side he was on. Amid the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, my mind drifts back to a particular incident in my early 20s. I was tagging along with Wayne in Russia, where Sylvester Stallone and Steven Seagal were filming an action movie. While under MK, Wayne took me to a museum in Ukraine. He acted furtive, as if we weren't meant to be there. But there we were, staring at these gold artifacts worth a fortune. I never entirely understood the purpose of that visit, but it was another one of those things Wayne wanted me to witness. Wayne was a master of MKUltra. It felt like he had a mysterious power that still baffles me. I'd find myself in different spots at various times without knowing how I got there. If someone ticked Wayne off, he could casually instruct them to drive their car into a fence or a fire hydrant, and they'd comply. It was like he wielded some magical control over them. Excuse me. Admittedly, being Wayne's pawn wasn't my favorite thing. While I understand the purpose now, back in the day I often resented it. As a kid, I concocted this notion of having a radio device in my head long before people knew about the full potential of brain chips and implants. I imagined they'd flick a switch, triggering me into that hypnotic state while I was asleep. Once, during a foray into the New Jersey woods to investigate a serial killer, I spotted a transmitter attached to Wayne's car. Convinced it was a device he used to activate me, I lost it. I grabbed a branch and started beating the living daylights out of it. I shouted at Wayne, "Go fuck yourself. What you're doing to me is totally wrong." I ranted on, beating that thing to a pulp. MKUltra quietly infiltrates the lives of everyday citizens more than they imagine. Many people know about the subliminal messaging strategically embedded in movies, TV shows, and advertisements. Many are familiar with the viral video exposing the Mockingbird media. Newscasters nationwide echoed the same words from identical scripts, a synchronized chorus that culminated in a crescendo of them chanting in unison, quote, "which is very dangerous for a democracy," unquote. Yet how many are aware that 22 military veterans take their own lives every day? That's 8,030 well-trained, able-bodied soldiers lost each year, individuals who could stand ready to defend our country in the event of an invasion. During basic training, I was forced to peer into binoculars placed on top of a massive spinning cylinder, racing through images at 1,000 miles an hour. All I saw was blood, guts, and gore, images that haunted me and drove me toward suicidal thoughts. The only reason I didn't do it is because I remembered the words of Victor, the same guy who was later involved in an encounter with Max Jr. where they tried to kill me outside a shopping mall. Victor once said, "If you ever think of killing yourself, don't. We need you around." That was the interesting thing about Victor. He was some double agent. Maybe that's why I didn't get killed that day when Max Jr. set me up. But I can't help but think that many of our military personnel ending their lives underwent similar MK Ultra suicide programming. This should clearly indicate that our government has been overthrown and replaced by a shadowy, treacherous regime. If one of their goals is to dismantle our military through suicide programming and other covert methods, it is cause for grave concern. Imagine a scenario where a criminal spy in the White House could easily direct our military in the wrong direction in an event of an invasion. The implications are chilling. Okay, so now we're on book 2. It's Killers, Kidnappings in Hollywood. Okay, Broken Dreams. Always remember who you are, my mother Jackie once said. Your father was a United States president. Quote, unquote. The Secret Service introduced my mother's body doubles early on. The main one, shown in photographs with Aristotle and in later pictures taken in New York, was present from the start and even appears in some early pictures taken at the White House. They were rotated so frequently that I couldn't tell the difference sometimes, but I remember the most prominent double once saying, quote, "I'm not quitting smoking for anybody." And so you can often distinguish between her and my mother as the double wears oversized sunglasses and smokes. My real mother loved art and painting. Oh, let me take these glasses off. Okay. My real mother loved art and painting. When I was little, Jackie sent me to study with various artists. I went to Israel to study with Chagall for a few weeks and to Chicago to study with Picasso. All right, let me stop here. Wait a minute. To study with Picasso. My friend Kenny, who I've been talking about. Oh, man. Well, I hear the word Picasso, I have to say it. The person I've been talking about became first a student and then a instructor at the Mass College of Art, where he eventually had his own studio and he was an instructor. This would be in the 90-ish. One day at the college there, Picasso's it's either granddaughter or grandniece or relative came to town, and Seven was asked by the administration to escort her around the campus and show her around. So he's in his wheelchair and he's the one asked to escort her around. This is Picasso's grandson. Anyway, at the end of that, she gave him a gift of a vial of dried pigment in that, what I like to call pink color. He showed me that vial he had on his shelf in the house. These little knickknacks and stuff that he had carried with him since a long time ago. Well, that vial was there, and he was a painter and everything, and he was good. He could actually what's it called when they paint like other people? He could actually do that. I'm not sure that, well, anyway, I've got more story about it. But yeah, Picasso's daughter gave him this Violet so and so. So anyway, I'm just mentioning it because he says Picasso. Did my friend lie sometimes? Did he tell the truth? Yeah, when he did, and then I would validate it. So I don't have any reason to think he was lying about that pigment. And there's more to say about that particular pigment of color. And he didn't use it. He said it was just a gift, so he'd never actually, it was powdered in a small little salt shaker looking vial. Okay, sorry, I just had to say that. All right. So a few weeks into Chicago to stay with Picasso. By the way, where Ken met her was in Boston. A lot of times when John talks, and I know this is no big deal, but to me it is. A lot of times when John talks, he'll say certain words, especially with an O in them, and he has that Bostonian accent exactly like Sevens. And I'm sure other people too, but there's this way that when he's speaking, it's like Kenny would, sometimes he would talk different, what do you call it? Like he had a Midwestern accent that would come out of him, and then he had this Bostonian kind of accent that I hear it in John's voice too. And it's interesting because, John's over here in the Southwest, Kenny came over here in the Southwest, and it's just interesting. And then when you have, forms of DID and stuff like that, yeah, I witnessed Ken's voice just changing from one minute to the other, and depending on who came into the house, his whole demeanor would change, which indicated he was triggered into an altar just to have a visit with a certain kind of person. Okay, anyway, I just had to say that. Okay. And again, I'm not going to apologize for interrupting the story, because if you guys get tired of hearing my drama, good, you can go get the book yourself or go to the channel called Dizzy, where she's reading it. I don't think she interjects her own stuff. She just reads chapter by chapter. Okay. He was working on metal crafts then, and my job was to polish the metal for him. I was with a bunch of kids, and I remember us all sitting around a picnic table with paper and pencils, learning how to sketch the flower or whatever still life was in front of us. One famous artist threw a big fit about having to teach me. He didn't want to do it. He was yelling and arguing, and I tried to tune it out by focusing on a picture on his wall. It was of me on my mother's lap. In the picture, I'm 2 or 3 years old, and I'm playing with her pearls. She is laughing with her head flung back. When John and Carolyn sold my mother's belongings at Sotheby's auction house, that one picture sold for $150,000, and it wasn't even his. It breaks my heart to think of how that picture went to a stranger. So I'm just thinking out loud. Technically, Seven was a bit older, 3 years older than me, and I'm 6 years older than John. So 9 years older. I was thinking out loud. Okay, not long after my father's death, my mother took me and my sister Caroline to the United Kingdom. I remember several things about that trip. I remember my mother arguing with the Queen in an ornate parlor at Buckingham Palace. The argument had something to do with my father, and my mother said, "You bitch." The Queen wrinkled her nose and said haughtily, "Oh, you're a bitch." Wayne accompanied us on that trip. It was our first covert military operation together. He took me to Ireland, where he met some high-ups in the Irish Republican Army. Upon arrival, our car parked in front of a small stone house where a guide greeted us. Venturing into the depths of interconnected basements, we eventually found ourselves outdoors, navigating planks over muddy ground to yet another home with a basement. It was in this dim, musty space that we had our meeting with the IRA. Seated at a worn table, the Irish resistance fighters told me, a child, how they couldn't find work or provide for their families. I understood that it was poverty and hunger that fueled their resentment towards England. When we returned to England, I spoke to the Queen about it. I said, look, these people are just hungry. You have to help them. Do what you can do because they are willing to fight for their families so that they can eat. The Queen thanked me and gifted me a ring. So this is the story when he shows about the ring. This is the story leading up to how he got the ring. So I was wondering about this myself. The Queen thanked me and gifted me a ring. It was a pretty ugly ring with a green stone veined with mossy tendrils. I felt disappointed that it wasn't nicer, but I was still happy to get it. Unfortunately, someone took it away, and I never saw it again. Our official tour included visiting an orphanage in Scotland, where President Eisenhower was also in attendance. Secrets... Oh, man. We can wonder why John isn't being interviewed already by Laura Eisenhower and all kinds of different people. All kinds of different people. Why haven't they already had him or whatever? If you know what I mean. Okay, let me start over again. Our official tour included visiting an orphanage in Scotland where President Eisenhower was also in attendance. Secret Service agents told Caroline and me to stand against a brick wall to one side of a wooden doorway. Across from us, I could see a young girl with light brown hair cut in a page boy crying at a picnic table. I pointed her out to my mother, who encouraged me to go over and comfort her. I could barely understand what she was saying through her tears, but her nurse informed me that she came from an aristocratic family and they had been murdered in front of her. Now no one knew what to do with her. I approached my mother and said, "We have to help this girl." 37 minutes. Okay, she agreed and arranged for the girl to be adopted by an American family in Phoenix, Arizona, who changed her name to Brenda. Brenda and I stayed in touch over the years. We found one another, because we both lived in the same witness protection area, and we called ourselves the Children of Murdered Parents Club, unquote. I don't know what happened to her with her new family, but she can't remember her first years with them and was left only with a lingering sense that her mother wasn't her real mother and that things weren't quite right. Sadly, she turned to drugs and was addicted to heroin for much of her adult life. She died in 2021. Rest in peace, Brenda. This is what happens, you guys. I meet people that seem crazy as fuck on the street my whole life, and then when they start talking, this has been going on my whole life. When I first came to this town, I was 19, and some dude were sitting in the gulch talking. He says, "Oh, I just got out of San Diego prison. They injected me with all sorts of shit, and now I'm receiving Bible fucking knowledge from and I'm 19. This is like in the 70s. People were telling me all kind of stories. Anyway, just to say, it's big. It's really big. And this is one reason why I stay with Kenny, because I took a lot of pride in walking with him, and, just if it freaked my friends out that I'm with this guy. I didn't give a shit. Nobody helped him when he was young. Here I am helping him when he's old. That's all I saw about it. And I knew what he had gone through in his story. Meanwhile, everybody around us, even to this day, is hardly going to listen and admit a thing. They all just want to say, no, that people are fucked up because of whatever. This is how deeply ingrained it is to turn kids into people that it's amazing that anyone grows up and hangs out, Anyway, just have to pause and say that. Okay, 1968 was the year Bobby was killed and my mother married Aristotle Onassis. I was with Jackie and a government agent at a motel when Bobby was shot. I believe this was the fake Jackie because the two of them were talking about the other John being somewhere and that something was going to happen, but I didn't understand it then. It just felt like they were planning something. After it happened, however, I remember my real mother crying, her eyes out for hours. I'm going to too many funerals, she sobbed. That's all I remember about Bobby's murder. I don't remember the funeral, just my mother's tears. Okay, there's somebody outside my wall making noise right now. It's probably the gardener. Okay, the Kennedy family was being systematically destroyed through murder, identity theft, and trauma. After Bobby died, I witnessed my mother being raped on an airplane on her way to New York. We were traveling with Jackie and her double. In the middle of the flight, a big, menacing man on the plane started assaulting her, and I was in tears, completely freaking out. The other man on the plane threatened that if I didn't quiet down, they'd kill her. When the plane landed, I was trembling. Everything seemed like fragmented snapshots, a disjointed reality. Someone handed me a dog on a leash and said, "You're getting off the plane with this dog to meet your new sister." I looked at him blankly and said, "I don't have a new sister." The fake Jackie exited the plane with me, wearing glasses and a big smile for the cameras. A girl approached me, dressed like my other sister. I said, "You're not real, you're fake." With eerie calmness, she said, "I know I'm not, but you better go along with it. It unnerved me how composed and collectedly she stepped into my sister's role. She acted like Hollywood had schooled her to act like my sister. By this point, I was crying uncontrollably. A policeman approached me and said, "Hey, John, I knew your father. He was a good president. I want to thank you. Is there anything I can do to help you?" I said, "Yeah, you can help me. They're going to kill my mother. I've got a new sister. There's plenty you can do to help me out." When he heard that, he approached the pilot and said, "The kid's not going with the program." That didn't go over very well. They took me back on the airplane, and the same agent who raped my mother started beating and kicking me. I fell to the ground, and he kept kicking and stomping me. I don't know if someone stopped him or what happened, because I was sure he would kill me, but I blacked out. So I just want to comment again about the whole thing of when we look at video of people for a few seconds on a news thing or anywhere. I mean, you could tell someone over and over again that they could be faking it. All they have to do is smile, and it's good. And people believe the presentation they see on a camera, on a interview, it is so deceptive. Yes, people can just smile, and you just have no idea. What happens to those of us that grow up with this sort of torture is that you don't trust any face. Any kind face is not trustable. Any polite niceness is not trustable. Period. You have to look past anyone's outer demeanor all the time. All the time. All the time. I don't care who you meet. If they're approaching you with this nice way, you're going to question it. And then the other thing that happens, if you don't smile and act all fucking nice all your life, people will say smile. You know how many times people say smile? Or somebody will catch me in a relaxed state and come up and go, oh, why do you always look so sad? You should smile. And I know this isn't news to anybody, but presentations can be as phony and even phonier. So, for example, and it causes this rebelliousness that just refuses to go along with that. And, even like people commenting, well, how come John Kennedy Jr. is just wearing a cap and doesn't act presidential and bullshit like that? Well, sorry. It's not going to happen until and unless there's an actual reason for him to dress like that and present like that. Otherwise, anyway, it's a real problem, and it took me years to learn that a nice face meant nothing. Even if eyes look at you soulfully, that could all be fake. I mean, fake as heck, And hey, I use the strategy of being perfectly nice when I want to get things done, You got to be nice to when you go to the post office or whatever. You can't lash out in public at people you don't know. But I'm saying this is how instantaneous. So there's a short temper for anyone saying, oh, she was, she looks fine based upon seeing media footage of somebody. That the public actually makes judgments just because they see media footage. It's like ridiculous, but that's how easy someone could go into character and be fake replacements all the time. People seem to have forgotten what AI has recently come up with, the deep fakes as well. Nobody's asking, nobody's vetting videos for if they're deep fakes or not, in terms of the voice and the image and everything. I made a video back a few months ago about the extent of deepfake technology. So it's layer upon layer of fake shit. Okay, anyway. Okay, but I blacked out. Okay. Jeepers. Okay. Where are we? 48 minutes. And it's going to take another 16 hours to upload. So right now it's morning. It's not even 10 o'clock. So, okay. After the rape and Bobby's murder, my mother was suffering from extreme mental turmoil and seeking solace and answers through different spiritual paths. It was during this phase that she decided to take me to India. There, I remember riding camels with a group of Indian men. I can't see. With a group of, with a group of Indian men who were believers in an unusual spiritual practice. According to them, if an elephant gave birth to a child, they were considered to be born again as the child of the elephant god. So that's what happened. They found an elephant that had recently given birth, and two men pushed me up the... Oh my goodness. Two men pushed me up the elephant's vagina into her womb. Instantly, I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating and panicking, trying to fight my way out of there. Finally, the elephant pushed me out, and I fell about 4 feet to the ground, covered in goo. Listen, guys, don't doubt that that's a true story, okay? Everyone ran over to make sure I was all right, but I felt like hell for 3 or 4 minutes. I just sat there trying to breathe, staring at them in disbelief, shocked that they'd actually done that. But sometimes, as a joke, when someone asks, "Who's your mother?" I shrug and respond, the elephant god. Oh my goodness. I've got the elephant god hanging on my wall over there. Jesus. At different times with the Quigleys, federal agents would show up and bring me to Aristotle's private island. No one ever gave me any advance notice. I remember one time Dorothy Quigley took me shopping for boating shoes, and the next thing I knew, I was being flown to Greece for a trip on Aristotle's yacht, the Christina. An early memory of that time is walking on board Aristotle's yacht at night. The sky was clear, and the stars shone brightly like a blanket of darkness, adorned with twinkling jewels. My mother looked up and pointed at one exceptionally bright star and said, "Remember that star as your father looking over us." I always remember that. I also remember my new siblings, Christina and Alexander. I loved them and admired Alexander so much. I remember one of his birthdays at the airport where a convoy of black limousines, like a presidential motorcade, rolled by where we stood on the runway. Suddenly a Jaguar pulled up and Aristotle stepped out and dropped the keys into Alexander's hand with a big smile and saying, "Happy birthday, son." When I was on the island, I'd go fishing and try to catch dinner. There was a maintenance man who kept things running, and he became my friend, helping me clean the fish I caught. I also remember finding ancient pottery shards and bringing them to my mother on the beach. I'd say, "Hey, Mom, check this out." Nighttime on the island meant parties with Hollywood stars, artists, and influential people. The island was also the only place I saw my sister after my father's death, but we didn't have much to do with one another. I would be off swimming, and she was off doing her own thing. I loved her, but she was kind of bitchy to me. Once she showed up on crutches. I think she broke her leg skiing or something like that. I said, "Oh, what happened?" But she snapped back, "Oh, shut up." On some of those trips, they had a Caroline look-alike. Jackie and Aristotle insisted it was my sister, and honestly, I got so fed up and confused that I stopped caring. I think the last time I saw my actual sister, she was between 10 and 12 years old. After that, she vanished from my life, and I have no idea what happened to her. Do I want to... Okay. Where are we? Okay, we're at an hour 52. I think I'm going to stop right here. And upload this. I assume it's going to take another 16 hours. And again, you can go to his website. He showed a screenshot that Google was actually taking people to the... no, I can't say that for sure. He wants people to use the Google search engine because that's been censored with his stuff on it, but the more that we use the Google search engine to type in his website, The Real John F. Kennedy Jr. His website is The Real John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. And it'll take you to his website. You can order books and things like that, and etc. So there's that, and his YouTube channel. He might be on right now doing lives. So there it is. You don't have to listen to me. I'm just reading it for history's sake and to tell little pieces of the story of my friend who used to be my friend for a short while when we were together. Because I haven't had the courage to tell his story separate until now, embedded in my reading of John Kennedy's book. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye.